Hey guys, we're joined by No.Empty.Chamber. I'm excited to talk to this man because he's a Taekwondo man like myself. No.Empty.Chamber, how you doing?
I'm not so bad. How are you?
Doing fine. We're just back from walking up a hill, so it was a wet and windy experience.
Good Scottish weather, good northern weather.
Good Scottish weather, that's it. So yeah, I'm interested. How and when did you get started in Taekwondo?
So first time stepping into a dojang, I was 4 or 5 years old, and then had to sort of leave because sort of being posted with my dad being in the army, had to jump around a few places, and then sort of unable to really find another sort of taekwondo club to join. So I rejoined another one after like 30 years last year, and yeah, it's just taken off really well. It's actually it's still a really really good community.
Excellent. And what organisation do you train under?
It's just TAGB.
Oh, TAGB, that's old school, yeah.
Yeah,
They've been around, since like the 80s, I think. They were the original guys.
yeah. So 80, 83, I believe it was. I should know this because it was on, on one of my grading exams.
It seems to me they were the first big taekwondo organisation in the UK. And I think Grandmaster Hiel Cho, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he helped set up that organisation, but then splintered off to form his own.
I'm not sure about sort of the origins. I know so I come under Taekwondo Southwest, and our grandmaster is the vice chair. So Grandmaster Ju is the vice chair of the TAGB as well.
I've heard the name. Yeah, yeah. So how does TAGB Taekwondo look in 2026? Has it changed since you?
I would say, yeah, it's the same in sort of like that. It's accessible for everybody. So we've got like a really good age range from sort of like the age of when I started to people older than me, sort of 50s and 60s. Yeah, I think because it's so sort of adaptable to who's going, it gives that accessibility to people.
It's a really inclusive martial art.
Yeah.
As we were talking about earlier, some of the combat sports, so for example, kickboxing or wrestling, or they can they can be suitable for kids at a younger age sometimes, but only if they really want to do it because there's contact involved. Taekwondo, I feel, is one that it's all encompassing because you can train without doing the competition side. Is that still the same?
Yeah, so my me and my partner both do this. She got a black belt in Kushindo karate when she was 13, and then gave up. And then we decided, what, we're going to do this together. And she's very sort of non-combative. She'll spar when she has to, but she'll compete in the sort of patterns and the forms and stuff. Whereas I'll quite happily do both. And then we've got people there that just go, do you know what? It's a purposeful form of fitness for me, rather than just going to the gym and flinging weights around for no real reason. We'll go and do it in a bit, do a bit more structured fitness. And everybody seems to be really happy that they can pick their own way to use Taekwondo.
Yeah. I mean, it means so much more than going to a gym and just training for vanity, or because it's, you build connections with other people and you become part of this team and part of this community, and it opens up doors that, otherwise would stay closed. So do you prefer, can I ask this, do you prefer the competition side of things, or do you prefer the forms and the traditional side of Taekwondo?
So I'm kind of 50-50. So I did this as a to almost to try and help myself with mental health and things like that after leaving the military after over a decade. And I've sort of my career has been built around getting the basics done right, and the forms and things like that are getting the basics right. People sort of within the sort of the more, we'll call them like the more combative sports, they'll throw a lot of shade at it and go, oh, do you know what, that won't work in the streets. And okay, fine, yeah, that's cool, it won't work in the streets, but you like really hone in on your sort of your fine motor skills and things like that. So I appreciate that just as much as I do stepping onto the mats with somebody.
Yeah. I've gone full circle because I started like yourself in Taekwondo when I was around 4 years old, and I trained for many years. I got my black belt, And at some point in time, I think I tried boxing first and quite enjoyed that, and then switched over to Muay Thai. And I went through a spell in my 20s where I kind of turned my back on Taekwondo and I discarded and discounted all of those things I had learned. But now at 40 years old, things have changed up a wee bit. And I'm not so sure that I could see myself going back into that martial art, but I appreciate the good that's in the traditional martial arts because it's a bit softer on the body.
Yeah, so I mean, one of the things I was tackling when I restarted with Taekwondo, so I've got metal in both wrists,
Yeah.
and I was due to have another operation. So that was November 24. So I'd sort of been doing Taekwondo again for a couple of months by this point, and my instructor turned around and said, like, okay, yeah, you're going to have this operation, you can have some time off, but really happy to adapt things or allow you to adapt what you do while you're recovering. But it's also important that you keep up with it because you can make Taekwondo part of your recovery, which was absolutely true. It's certainly helped. So I've got like a plate and 6 screws in my left hand, and working on sort of pads, going from sort of technique first and then into power, has sort of really built that back up. So there's even value in that.
And that's really true. And you mentioned also that it helps you a lot with the mental side of things. Could you elaborate a wee bit on that?
Yeah, so I moved to sort of a fairly rural area in Gloucestershire, and didn't really sort of know that many people around here. It's quite easy to go and make friends in the pub and things like that, which I'm not averse to at all. But it kind of got to a point where I was like, I want to sort of hang about with people that want to want to hang out in a setting where we're going to better ourselves and we're going to challenge each other and that kind of thing. And once I sort of stepped into that, it humbled me going right back to the start again. But it also helped me with things like sort of having that imposter syndrome and stuff. So I was able to walk into their clean slate. I didn't have to tell anybody the things that I dabbled in before. So I've done bits of judo, bits of Muay Thai, and bits of kung fu, karate over the years, as I've had to bounce around. But I got to walk into there with a clean slate, and people just kind of discovered. They were like, "Are you sure you haven't done this before?" and things like that. I was like, "No, well, yeah, I have, but let's pretend I haven't." And it was just just almost like a calming way to get back into it.
There's a term for that in BJJ. I don't know if you've heard this term before. They call people who have done a bit of judo or wrestling or something similar, to jiu-jitsu, and they go and compete at lower belts. They call them sandbaggers. Have you ever heard that?
Okay. No.
So if you're a sandbagger, you're basically lying about your kind of experience in order to compete at a low. But I'm not saying that's what you're doing, obviously. And Taekwondo is a much different thing. Tell me this though, when you went back to Taekwondo, did you go back as a black belt or did you have to go down belts and come back up the way?
So I've never had a black belt in anything. I went right from scratch, and sort of went. You know what? I've been out of practice for Taekwondo for so long, but I've also been out of practice for pretty much anything for a long enough time to go. Do you know what? I'd prefer to start right back at basics. So I was it last month. Got my blue belt. My target is to become a black belt before I'm 40. That's my sort of little challenge to myself. But yeah,
absolutely. Cool. So you mentioned as well when we were chatting on Instagram and the DMs, you mentioned when you were younger you did something called Lau Gar Kung Fu, and I'm really interested in hearing that.
It was not something that I sort of did for too long. It was because my dad did it, and I sort of did bits and pieces with my dad, and it was kind of like, if I remember rightly, it was almost watching him do it. It was what I likened to seeing in like sort of films and TV and stuff, or sort of like the Wing Chun type style. And I was like, I fancy a bit of that. But there was no real kids classes for it. So it was just something that I would do with my dad. But I think so. I think the best way to explain what I've done over the years is taken sort of like little bits when I've been exposed to them and almost been able to roll them together, and sort of come up with, how I'm able to apply it now. So, for instance, if I go to like a Taekwondo competition, I'm not necessarily as sort of bouncy and flighty as your stereotypical Taekwondo athlete. I'm a little bit more grounded, but I think I sort of, that's because I've taken these little bits from other places.
And that's the Bruce Lee's philosophy of Jeet Kune Do. Take what
Yeah.
works, and use it in your own style. And I would imagine if you've dabbled in Muay Thai, you'll be a lot more grounded than a typical Taekwondo fighter who they like to be on their toes and dancing alone. But Muay Thai is more of a sort of steady, grounded and throwing strong kicks and stuff. When you are kicking in competition, do you chamber the leg and kick it out for speed, or do you throw it straight through like a Muay Thai fighter?
It depends. So I'm I want to say flaw, but in terms of what for looking for a better word, but I fight in a heavyweight division, which for us is it's anything over 80 kilos, and I am about, I think, the last time I competed, which was back in the last year, I weighed in at 82, and I think the rest of the guys were well over 95. I've seen sort of like the picture of us afterwards, and I'm like that, and they're like that.
Yeah, that could be a huge difference.
So I could almost afford to telegraph a little bit, and get good chambers because it was sort of naturally slower paced. If I'm up against somebody who's a bit more middleweighty, or if I started K-1 back in the last year as well, just to become a little bit more well-rounded. I can't really chamber the same way with those guys because they're a lot more perceptive to it and a lot quicker to react. So yeah, it depends on what setting as to whether I'm textbook chambering or whether I'm trying to work my way in through somebody's defense or whatever.
And that's what I always say, the rule set dictates the way you fight 100%. The Muay Thai scoring criteria is so different from like a points style Taekwondo tournament. And if you try and fight like a Muay Thai fighter in points, you will lose. And if you try and fight like a points fighter in a Muay Thai contest, they'll run straight through. It's like just two different things,
I mean, I think not trying to give my game away to anybody who's going to watch this, but I tend to use sort of like really overpronounced chambering when I'm fainting.
Yes.
So it's a really, I find it to be a really good distraction method. I'm not a big fan when you see the sort of like the foot fencing in Taekwondo where they're like fully chambered and just shotgunning kicks out. It's sort of I'm a bit. Yeah.
They're kind of gaming the system, I feel, a wee bit with that. Like, they know that if they keep a barrier out there, I've seen that before, where they're just throwing side kicks. They're hoping the opponent walks onto the end of their foot, but it gets away from fighting, and it's more of a...
I think what I found as well is because Taekwondo is great distance control, and I think that's what they're using it for, is to try and control that space. When you come up against somebody who's a little bit more like sort of switched on to it, they're really, really fairly easy to sort of almost get underneath. So once they fling that leg out, come up underneath it and that kicks to the torso. You've spent sort of like 3 chambered kicks telling somebody actually you're able to do this.
Because that's something I always struggled with, even when I had done a few years in Muay Thai. I used to coach it was a Taekwondo facility, but I would coach the Muay Thai classes. And I used to spar with the Taekwondo guys. So it was this really cool. On a Friday night, we all got together and just mixed it up. And it was quite open rules as well. And I always struggled getting past that side kick. That's an interesting. So you're saying come up underneath it?
So I don't know whether that might be a me thing. So I'm a little bit vertically challenged. I'm sort of 5'8", 5'9".
Yeah.
But again, with the heavyweight guys, they're sort of like over sort of 6 foot. So I'm not having to put a lot of effort to get underneath it. if I was with a slightly shorter fighter, yeah, there'd be a lot more effort to get underneath it.
That makes sense.
I suppose the other sort of technique would be, because a kick to the back would be, you wouldn't score for it. So if you can kind of turn and then sort of hook kick backwards is another way around it, but it doesn't work anywhere near. It's in my practice anyway. Doesn't work anywhere near as often as being able to sort of come up underneath that leg.
Yeah. So my go-to was always just to maintain distance. If somebody had that leg and they were flashing it out, hang back, it's going to drop at some point, and that's when you slip in with your kick. So it's like, just basically letting them tire themselves out and just circling, keeping distance, keeping angles, that kind of thing.
Yeah. It'll go one or two ways. Either it'll drop and then they've got to almost reset, or they just they gas out.
So what I always remember from back in the day at Taekwondo tournaments, there was guys like us. We were a very traditional based school, and we would spend like maybe 80-90% of our time doing forums and the last 20 doing sparring. We would go to tournaments and there was guys who would come up that were obviously kickboxers. They'd obviously fought and competed, and they would just smash everybody to pieces. Is that still the same thing? Still the same way?
Yeah, so one of the drivers for me taking on K1 to be a bit more well-rounded is my first heavyweight competition. The guy who ended up taking top spot was very grounded, and I was looking at sort of his stance and sort of like how he was holding his guard, and I was like, I recognize that, but I can't put my finger on it quick enough to go, this is how I get around it. And if I haven't asked him, but sort of looking at things over the months since then, I'm pretty sure what he's done is Kyokushin karate.
Oh,
it was a very similar stance, but he almost, if it was a continuous bout, I think he probably would have been penalized just for not taking action.
Yes.
But he was just reactive. Every time I did something, he was there to fire it back, but never did any of the approaching.
That does sound like Kyokushin. The moment you make contact, you're in range, he fires in that kick. Was he throwing his kicks with a lot of power?
There's quite a lot of power. A lot of the hand techniques really sort of followed through as well. Like, oh, Jesus Christ, you
always get that. And in some sense, these Taekwondo tournaments are actually found to be more dangerous, believe it or not, than a kickboxing fight. Because at least when you're training for kickboxing, you know that's what you're going into a contact match. But sometimes we would turn up ready for semi-contact, and there was some guy who was obviously a kickboxer, a Muay Thai fighter, and they were in there to try and hurt you, which is wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I'm quite glad now. So once you reach blue belt within the TAGB tournaments, you go from point stop to continuous, and I think it slightly changes where, like, the point stop, you can throw like one powerful punch and it'll land.
Yeah.
If you're doing continuous and you're constantly going full bore, you'll gas out.
You'll gas out big time.
So I think almost like the point stop is slightly flawed in that sense.
Well, that's interesting as well. So it's once you reach blue belt and above, it turns into continuous automatically. That's changed. Yeah, you used to be able to do point stop all the way up to black belt and beyond.
But I think I don't know whether so I mean, you've got other organizations and associations that we can compete under. So I've done mostly TAGB competitions, but I've also done a BTC. I know that we can enter some of the opens for ITF. They might do it slightly differently, where you can almost like opt for, I want to do point stop or I want to do continuous. But certainly what I've seen within the TAGB, once you get to blue, you kind of expected to do the continuous style bouts.
That's really interesting, because it sounds to me as if they've maybe realised, like, some of the things I was speaking about from back in the day, where you could be really good at point stop, but not necessarily great at continuous. They've recognised there's maybe a need to do both. So there's a cut-off point when you reach blue belt. It's time to branch out and try the continuous, more kickboxing orientated fights.
Yeah, so I would say it's, I mean, personally, because do a lot of, sort of strength and conditioning around the sport as well. Like a lot of people will just go to their classes and go to their clubs and stuff. But I think if you're going to start seriously competing in the continuous style, you need to be thinking about, is my cardio good enough? I'm not going to land a hit and then it's going to be stopped and I can recover for 10 seconds. You're going to have to keep going for the full 2 minutes.
Exactly.
So I think it does make people almost take it a little bit more seriously.
Yeah.
But I also think it could potentially put a lot of people off who don't want to sort of take that leap, and they'll go, do you know what, I was all right with point stop, but now that we've moved into this, and there is a I don't know whether it's sort of within my club or whether it's just a bit of an unofficial thing that goes about, but blue belt is where most people tend to drop off, and I'm wondering, is that why?
Good point, actually, because it's not for everyone.
No.
It's really continuous sparring. I can remember being a kid and I was used to point stop and I was happy. That was my level of comfort. And the very first time I tried continuous sparring, I basically got beaten to bits. And it was a horrible experience and it almost put me off going back. So I think for a lot of people, it's just not there. It's not for everybody.
No, and I think some people probably will. They'll go, oh, do you know what? Point stop was, it was sporty. This feels like a fight, and if people aren't into that, I can understand why it would turn people off on it.
100%. You see some good points guys, however, in UFC at the minute. Michael
So
Page.
I don't tend to follow sort of UFC and boxing and stuff. Obviously, like the big names, but seeing sort of like clips on social media, I can kind of see, some of their backgrounds and stuff like that kind of shine through.
The two that spring to mind, you've got Michael Venom Page and you've also got Raymond Daniels. So if you ever look at some of their clips and you can see that you'll recognise it as being a Taekwondo point stop fighter, and it really works in MMA. It really works for them because they're closing the distance really quickly. And they're landing some amazing techniques, spinning techniques, and catching people by surprise. So it really does translate well to the octagon, the techniques.
I think that it's quite interesting you say that because I don't know whether it's the same for ITF as in their association, but there's been a rule set coming for us TAGB wise where so you're not allowed to do more than 3 continuous hand techniques. So if you throw 3 punches and then go for a 4th, it's not allowed.
I think that's always been the case though. I can remember that. Yeah, a way back. We were never part of TAGB. I know some guys that crossed over into TAGB and they were pretty good. But the organisation, I think, when I last did Taekwondo, it was AMA. Have you heard of AMA before? No, it's a bit different. And before that, it was like a Scottish Taekwondo Association. So I think we basically fought under ITF, like the official ITF style rules. Yeah. And I can remember people saying like 2 or 3 hand techniques, then you had to change it to a kick, or it was something like that.
I don't think it's necessarily as strict as changing it to a kick. So if you were to sort of 3 techniques and then sort of like do an evasive maneuver or something, that then would count as a, you've broken that sort of punching cycle. But yeah, it's and I think that might be another thing that would put people off trying to apply it into things like UFC. I'm not going to try and do that because if it comes to it, I might need to go more than 3 hand techniques.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Do you think you'll ever take? You mentioned K-1. Do you fight K-1 at martial arts tournaments, or have you ever? Is it in a ring, or how does that work?
So I've started in December. Then there was obviously Christmas break and everything. So I think I've had about 4 or 5 sessions since I came back. So I am still really new to it. So it has been sort of learning, the bare basics. I think the club that I'm in, they will sort of you'll do some inter clubs because I think they've got 3 locations right in the area. So you'll do an inter club competition, sort of go sort of beyond that. I know some of the sort of more experienced people have had specific fight nights. I'm wondering whether I'll go that far with it. I'm not saying no. But yeah, I'm still in that sort of phase where, okay, I'll get to grips with it. I'll probably do a grading or two and see sort of where it goes.
The two big differences is squaring off your stance. So you'll be quite bladed, I would imagine, in Taekwondo. So you've got a strong lead and a bit of distance.
Yes, I think anything off my lead leg is generally fairly. I'll use that for my distance control. If I wanted to come through with something, really like a real positive connection, it will generally come off the back. And I think that's from doing bits like Muay Thai, where yeah. So I do tend to switch up my stances sort of mid match, and it depends what my opponent's been doing as well as to sort of what I do. But I'm quite sort of varied, I guess.
Yeah, I'll tell you one cool thing to check out. Have you seen this Total Combat organization?
So I'd like to do that.
Really? Oh, yeah. Right. That would be so cool. They fight in an oval shape. It's not a ring. It's like a kind of.
And there's like curved sides on it.
It's really excellent. Have you watched any Total Combat?
So I watched I think it was on ITV.
It was last year.
Yeah, I watched a bit of it. Yeah. So there's that, and then there's combat taekwondo as well. I don't know.
I've seen that as well. Yeah. I've just recently seen that. Yeah.
That seems to be a bit of a difficult one to get into. You have to be affiliated to a combat taekwondo club, which I believe there is only one in the UK. And shocker, it's in London.
That's kind of disappointing.
Yeah, because I would have liked to have seen or been involved in let's say like a more practical application of taekwondo.
Yeah.
That would have been interesting.
I made a wee video about this because Total Combat, what I like about that organisation is they're giving traditional martial artists a platform to showcase their techniques, which are totally different from like a traditional kickboxing match or a Muay Thai fight. And it gives people a chance to do something. And I think it will really go down well. I think it will develop an audience over time.
I mean, I think the way that I think about it is it's a legal version of Bloodsport.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's why I like it so much. That's one of my favourite films.
No, it's good. There's been some there's been some moments in it when I've watched it and I've gone, you know what, like that guy's a kickboxer and that guy's karate, and that kickboxer's 100% going to have him, and they're like, no way, like that the other guy's completely come through. Oh, wow, okay.
It's impressive stuff. It's really good to watch. I would actually like to go. There's a show coming up. I've got something else on, but I think it's in the 28th of this month. So somewhere near the end of the month, I've got a show in Liverpool, I believe it is.
Right.
And I would love to actually get down and see it live.
That would be cool.
It would be so cool. And that's a great goal for yourself. If you're serious about competing and you want to get on one of these shows, go for it.
I think I'll see sort of how the K-1 takes me, because I think I would need that to, especially give me some more sort of time training as well. So rather than having just the 2 days a week doing taekwondo,
for sure.
Because at the moment I'm running 2 days taekwondo, 2 days K1, and then 2 days strength conditioning is sort of my general sort of schedule.
Yeah.
But I think the thing that I'm conscious about is age, and there doesn't seem to be a lot of guys in their sort of mid to late 30s.
Okay, I've not really noticed, to be honest, in Total Combat, but that makes sense right across the combat sports. It seems to be it's a young man's game. There are exceptions, I suppose. They seem to be in the heavier weights as well. You're competing much later.
But I think for me, one of the things that sort of drew me back in is I wanted to prove almost that being a little bit later into the game doesn't always need to matter as long as you do it right. I suppose trying to sort of follow that philosophy shouldn't really put me off going to do something like that. But I've then got to think about sort of injury time and time off work and all that kind of thing, and all the adult stuff that none of us want to be bothered about that we have to be.
Exactly. And that is one of the beauties of the traditional arts. The risk of injury is much lower. And that's why it becomes appealing again to people with responsibilities. You know, when you're in your 20s and you're a student, it's great to go to Muay Thai. If you break your leg, you break your leg. You can study from home. But when you're earning a living and you say you've got a responsible job, then Taekwondo and some of these traditional arts come back into your mind because they're a positive thing without the risk of injury.
Yeah. I mean, even so, like, what I did to my ankle, and it was only a bit of, tendon strain, but it meant that I couldn't drive into work. And I was quite happy that they were like, no, you carry on working from home. You know, you do what you want. But I thought, you know what, if I was working somewhere else, that could have gone very differently.
Well, if you were like a self-employed plumber or something like that.
That's it. Yeah.
It's no, definitely. It's almost as dangerous as climbing hills.
I mean, if you get stuck up there, then you've got no one to answer to. You just lay down and take it. It's like,
If you twist your ankle on the way back down, as Andy did earlier.
You're okay now.
Oh, it's fine now. Aye, that's right. It was kind of slippy. So we're like, do you know when you're going up, you're going really slow and you're taking your time, and on the way back down, just with the momentum, you're trying to sort of find your feet and jog.
Yeah.
And every so often we were just losing the foot a wee bit. But just a wet day, a nice Scottish wet, horrible day. Basically.
Only so far that good footwear will get you, though, isn't it?
I think so. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's what I'm finding anyway. But no, that's really cool. So I'm interested though, because back in the day at Taekwondo tournaments, Lau Gar Kung Fu guys always used to, these open tournaments when different martial arts styles come together. I can always remember being fascinated with that martial art because they wore really like, from what I can remember, it was like silky,
So
with a silky sash thing around their waist, and
so it was like a satin belt.
Like a satin belt. And listen, it was a long, long time ago, but I can remember their forums. We were very like rigid and very straight, and they were very flowing and sort of like, and it looked really mysterious. And I never ever learned anything about it. But
I think the what would I liken it to? Remember, so like old school Jackie Chan doing like the drunken boxing.
Yes,
kind of like that kind of flowy movement,
like Silat, sort of like Penjak Silat, that same sort of movements. And
I've not really seen any of that.
That's an old. They used to talk about that way back when the UFC first started. You that Penjak Silat guy. I don't know exactly where it's from, but it looks a lot like that Lau Gar Kung Fu, and I think it always looked really, really cool. But there was nowhere that did it here, and I'm actually sure the people who used to travel to Scotland, the Lau Gar Kung Fu guys, I think they were from Wales. If I recall correctly.
Do you know what? So I'm starting to notice a little bit of a trend. So the Welsh guys in Taekwondo have got a hell of a footing. They are they're especially their national squad are kind of well renowned. And I don't know what it must be. It must be the air in Wales or something that just helps them. But yeah.
You'll maybe find that it was one of the first places that TAGB was established was Wales. That seems to ring a bell.
Quite possibly.
Does the name Tony Sewell ring a bell? Tony Sewell or something like that?
No.
Because I seem to remember him as being an early figure in TAGB, and I think he was possibly Welsh, but so long ago.
Yeah, I mean, I sort of after I started, so when we moved around, the reason that I left Taekwondo in the first place is we were posted out to Germany, so I sort of lost touch with all of it at once.
Of
so
course, that's right.
Anything that happened in the 90s is kind of like, oh, I don't know, I wasn't there.
It's just a blur.
Yeah. I even get it with like sort of films and stuff. Like, oh, did you watch this in the 90s? I'm like, no, I was stuck with one channel that was in English. Was it
really like that? Yeah.
It was like that until I think so. I moved in '96, and then I think about maybe early '98. I think we managed to get Sky, but still very limited. So yeah.
I mean, Taekwondo itself, I think, was a martial arts sort of developed and used to build the Korean military because it's very regimented. It gets
Yes.
with it. So do you know much about that side of things?
Not really. I know there's one that's sort of closely linked, which I believe is more militarized, which I think is Tang Sudo.
Thanks to do.
And then there's sort of other variants, but I think there was something like five original variants that were. I mean, they all had an influence from karate, because Korea at the time was being occupied by the Japanese, and then they kind of they split off into their own sort of like factions, I suppose. And then it was General Choi Hong Hai.
Yeah.
Then sort of did what we now know as modern Taekwondo back in 1955.
Yeah.
And I think there was, because of that, it ends up with like a lot of disjoint as to sort of what people understand as what Taekwondo is. And I think a lot of the negativity that's pointed towards it from people who do the likes of Muay Thai, kickboxing, boxing, that kind of stuff, is they a lot of them probably think that the only form of Taekwondo is what they see in Olympics. And it's like, well, hang on a second. If you have a look at the ITF style, it's actually more close to kickboxing and karate than WT Taekwondo.
WTF, yeah. Have you ever tried WTF?
No, it's never interested me.
I'm the same. Like, I mean, I know that is the official Olympic sport, but like, it seems to be all based on about kicking.
Yeah, I think apart from looking at the guys in the sort of like the total combat and combat Taekwondo, I don't think I've ever seen a WT oriented person use a hand technique before.
No, I don't even know. I think they can score if they punch to the body. It's a bit like Kyokushin. There is a score, but it's a lesser score than a well-placed kick, which in the context of their sport makes sense. It's a kicking art form, it's a kicking sport. But you're right, though, people associate all of Taekwondo with what they see in the Olympics. And they don't realise there's two main branches, ITF and WTF.
Yeah, and you kind of see it if you start looking at sort of like some comments on like videos on social media and stuff, and they're like, oh, that would never work. And hats off to the WT guys. I still kind of almost want to reply back sometimes and go, yeah, I mean, a well-placed sort of kick to the mouth from a WT guy will probably stop you making comments like that.
100%. That's just everybody's tough when they're behind a keyboard,
100%.
And it doesn't matter what martial art you're in, you always get it. And you see, between, and I do BJJ now, that's my main sort of martial art, and I really enjoy it. I don't compete or anything like that. I just train for fun. I've not actually trained for a long time, but you see it in the BJJ community. The big thing is gi or no gi, so uniform or just rolling in and people, well, this works better, that works better. But in reality, if you're doing any one of them, they all work to some degree.
So I think there's the train of thought that sort of like grappling arts are meant to be sort of like the best for, I suppose, real world application. But I would say you've got a bit of a hurdle to get over first. Like, you actually need to go like down to the floor.
All fights start standing.
Yeah, and I mean, being on the floor is not a place you want to be. So you're probably training for the worst case scenario. But why let it get that far if you can turn on and just punch somebody and end it?
Well, that's it. The goal should always be in any self-defense scenario to stay on your feet, because then you're mobile and you can run away if needs be. However, a lot of fights, for whatever reason, end up in a clinch, and then from there it's pretty much Greco-Roman. It's staying on your feet at all costs, and it can be judo as well. I know you trained in judo, so how long did you train in judo for?
It was about a year, again, because it was something that was being offered while I was doing my trade training in the military. And when I moved bases, it wasn't offered on the base that I moved on. So I'd gone from Hampshire to Somerset. And I sort of gave it up because it wasn't being offered, but I was still I was still really career focused at that point as well. So it was like, what, I'm not going to go hunting around for another club. I need to get my head into getting my qualifications done and stuff like that. I did one judo competition It didn't go very well for me at all. But the thing that I do appreciate about sort of like grappling arts is I think you gain a lot more understanding of anatomy.
Yeah. Well,
So working out what are your body's limitations, what's your opponent's limitations, that kind of thing, because you are so up close and personal, and you're being really manipulative with yours and someone else's body. You do really learn a lot about the body.
especially judo. I would say
Yeah.
especially judo. You learn where your opponent's centre of gravity is and how to get your centre of gravity underneath theirs and load them up on your hips. And it's just a super impressive martial art. In my opinion, I think it's very heavily underrated.
I think so. I mean, I dare say that um, I might get some shade thrown at me for this one, but you put a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner up against a judoka, I think I know which way it would go.
Relative experience, so they both trained the same amount of time, or what would you?
Yeah, I would say if you put them, put them to the same level within their time served, if you will. I reckon a judoka would.
I can actually speak on this a wee bit, because this
Okay.
is exactly right. So as you know, I trained Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I used to train on a Wednesday night in the gi, so in the uniform. And this guy walks in, and nobody's seen him before, so he's brand new. He's wearing a white belt. Okay.
Right.
Unbeknown to any of us, he is like a 3rd-degree black belt and has competed like in the Commonwealth Games in judo. Right. So there's this thing in jiu-jitsu where, I don't know, you probably heard people talking about pulling guard.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So you know that you put the foot traditionally, you take your grips, you put the foot on the hip, and you fall back.
Yeah.
It's a competition oriented. You never do it in a self-defense. Competition orientated thing. So this guy comes in, I immediately shoot my grips, take the grips, foot on the hip, and I fall back. And he immediately shucks my leg, passes my guard, and starts putting this ungodly pressure on like my forefoot. Who is this guy? And I could even tell at the beginning when I was like kind of shooting my grips, he was parrying grips. That's a judo thing. So my mind already was an alert. This guy's a good judo player, and he just destroyed me. Absolutely destroyed me. And the pressure was different. The pressure was so intense, man.
Was it just was it a bit of a punishment, or was there a learning curve in that for you?
Huge learning curve, because I think pulling guard in general, it's not a great idea. The only tournament I ever competed in, it worked in my first 2 matches and I won. And my 3rd match, the exact same thing happened where the guy caught my trouser leg, and he put in fact, I think he just moved his body out of the way, and then he's on top of me, and it's very hard. Once somebody's in on top of you and they've got a good pin or a good hold, if it's 6 minutes in a match, you're pretty much done if they know what they're doing, kind of thing. And that's what happened to me. So this guy, high-level judo player, he wrapped me up in a scaffold. Remember Kesagatame?
Yes.
And the judo players really learn how to blade their body, pull your head up, and make it really nasty. It's almost like a submission, in that position. And I think it was just a horror show, to be honest.
Okay. I think the thing that I appreciate that sort of judokas do is they're really good with their hips. So when you're you're about to get sort of taken over, anything that's going to come over their back, and it's not about throwing the shoulders forward; it's about throwing the hips up. Yeah. And I started. Used to do a little bit of Olympic weightlifting, and there was a guy in there that was like really good, sort of like hip snapping as he was cleaning, jerking, that kind of thing. And I was like, how are you so sort of mobile in the hips? He was like, oh, I've done judo since I was like 8. And I was like, right, okay, now I'm seeing the correlation. He's like, yeah, a lot of people don't appreciate the crossover for your strength conditioning. Like if you're doing judo, try Olympic weightlifting. You'll be better. They'll complement each other really well. And I was like, yeah.
These guys are athletes. That's a big difference. I think judo's got such a competitive scene, and it's been an Olympic sport for a long, long time. Jiu-jitsu, I think good players, they have better submissions than your judo guys. So on the floor, they can be sneakier. They can catch you with a variety of submissions. But on the feet, I would pretty much always favour the judo guy. And I think they tend to be stronger, more athletic, and they go after things faster. So they throw you to the ground and they immediately jump on something. Whereas jiu-jitsu is very slow and controlled, and you wear your opponent down.
Yeah, I think you can. So like, your BJJ guys are probably playing a little bit more of a chess game than the judo guys. The judo guys are going, you know what, let's get straight in and just get it done. Whereas the BJJ guys are like, you know what, let's toy with each other a bit, get the best position I can, rather than just going for the first thing that presents itself.
And again, it comes down to what we mentioned earlier. The rule set dictates how you fight. The judo guys only have a small time period to either throw their opponent and win the match, but ippon, or attack that arm lock or whatever pin, for so many seconds. So they're really encourages the athlete to chase after it and finish the fight. And I think that is, again, for self-defense or for any kind of altercation, that's more beneficial than hanging around on top of somebody, waiting for their mates to come in for the side and kick you in the head or something like that.
Yeah.
In and out.
Well, it's making me think though. So I've got a question for you. So we've said about like sort of availability of it, of sort of clubs, injury time. If all of that was taken off the table, what style would you sort of gravitate towards now? Now that you've sort of tried a few over the years, like what would you sort of go for?
I could start again if I could go back to the beginning.
Or if you could just pick one now with zero consequences.
It depends what it's for. Again, like if it's for self-defense, if it's purely for being able to survive an altercation, it would probably be judo.
Okay.
It would probably be judo, or maybe still jiu-jitsu trained the right way.
Yeah. Okay.
Jiu-jitsu for me is gentler on the body. So somebody at my age, I'm 40, judo is a tall task because you've taken a lot of falls and there's a huge risk of like popping ribs, busting up your knees, landing on your neck. I think you need to learn judo as a kid and learn how to break fall properly and avoid injury.
And just have those years of conditioning for judo.
Oh, for sure. Building up your body to take those hits.
See, if I've thought about this quite a bit over a period of time, if I could pick something and there was sort of no consequences behind it, I didn't have to think about my age or anything like that, I would love to have a go of Sambo.
Oh, good point. Well, that is judo in the gi, but with strikes as well.
Yeah. And as a, because you see it all the time, like, oh, which two martial arts would you mix together to be the best rounded? Well, actually, there's one out there.
Yeah.
It's Sambo.
Exactly. Have you ever seen, I think it's called Kudo?
I've heard of it. I've not seen a lot around it, but isn't that relatively the same?
Relatively the same. They wear a sort of, it's like a kind of face mask type thing.
Like a helmet. It's got like has it got a visor on it?
That's the one. And they wear a judo.
Yeah.
It looks like a judo gi top. They wear, I think a full judo gi. You're allowed pretty much everything that you're allowed in a kickboxing match. But with the throws, I don't recall what happens when it hits the floor. I think they're allowed to strike, possibly submit, but don't quote me on that. I think it's more of a stand-up kind of thing. But it's very impressive, And these guys are tough.
Yeah. But I don't know. Like I wish stuff like that was more available, just to sort of have a go at it, just to try and go. Do you know what? I try enough to turn on and go. Yeah, I don't want to do that anymore.
Exactly. And that's it. Your priorities completely change. I think when you grow up and you start feeling the aches and pains of years of training martial arts, and I could almost see myself moving towards something like Tai Chi or like something gentle that's good for the body, but not necessarily combative.
Yeah.
I
thought you were going to say that I thought you were going to say the A word there.
No. I can't understand myself. The Steven Seagal thing.
Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
No
But
comment.
listen, do you know one thing I would say? There was a guy who I used to roll with in BJJ. He was a policeman and he had a Aikido background. So he did Aikido first and became quite proficient in that before he started BJJ. And this guy would always catch everybody in the room with wrist locks.
Fair play.
Yeah. And I think the combination of BJJ and Aikido, when done right, is wrist lock heaven. You can catch people left, right, and centre.
Do you think then, possibly, with all the negativity that gets thrown at Aikido, and to be fair, other arts as well, do you think actually once upon a time they were good and then they've kind of been McDojoed?
I don't know. That's a good question. I've thought about this. When it comes to Aikido, I believe, and they don't quote me on this, I'm not no expert, but I believe it was a martial art that was made for disarming people with weapons.
Right.
And I think it would look very different if somebody was coming towards you with a stick or a sword and you were sort of using their body weight against them. So you're taking their momentum and you're brushing them aside.
Yeah.
I think that changes the game a wee bit. I think the way, you're probably right, the way it's practiced now is completely impractical. And, there's a really interesting guy. Have you ever heard of Rocast, the Aikido guy?
I've heard him mentioned by, I think, the likes of like Sensei Seth and people like that.
I can't even say his second name. He's Lithuanian.
Yes. I've seen a couple of clips.
He started a really cool show called The Ultimate Self-Defense Challenge or Championship. I'll send you the clips. And he's went kind of from traditional Aikido as a teenager or young man, and he moved towards MMA and boxing, I believe.
Okay.
And he's now really heavily invested in the self-defense aspect of things. And I think he's always looking for ways to apply his Aikido in real life scenarios. So he's like the best, I would say he's about the best source for applications of Aikido. There's also something called Aiki Jujitsu. Have you seen that before?
No.
That's pretty badass. It's like an Aikido competition.
Right.
Where it sort of looks a wee bit like judo. Here's the problem. All these things have got their own names, and then when it comes to like a no rules fight, they all look the exact same.
Yeah.
There's only so many ways the body can move.
That's it. Yeah. But I don't know. I think having unfortunately been exposed to a McDojo before I started back in Taekwondo, now it's prompted that question a few times. The one that I walked into claimed to be rooted in Taekwondo, and then they I don't know, sort of boasted real world application of it and things like that. And I was sort of like, you know what, this isn't working for me. And it makes me feel sorry for the genuine practitioners and the genuine schools.
Good point. Well, I mean, TAGB has been around from day one. They're perfectly legit. And I think they've developed an amazing reputation over the years. So you're in a much better place now, you know?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the record that I had last year, I didn't expect it at all. So I think seven medals last year.
Nice.
So it's definitely not where I expected to be. So I'm kind of thinking, you know what, I would have loved to have gone to the Worlds this year, but it's over in Canada, and I just simply can't afford it.
Yeah.
So I will. I'll see where I'm at with it for the next one, which I believe is 2028. We'll see how I am there. But yeah, I think because of the sort of the routing that they have and the sort of background and all the lessons learned over however many, 40 odd, 50 odd years, is the reason why I was able to do what I did.
Excellent.
Without the sort of their knowledge and foundation. And shout out to Temple's TKD, which is the club that I'm with. Master Ben Temple, Sith Dan, he's very, very, very knowledgeable guy, but is also sort of very aware of people's limitations, their lifestyle, and he's the way he's sort of taught me. I've seen I've seen my sort of curve go like that, and yeah, I can't sort of say any more about the sort of TAGB being well grounded.
Yeah, and when you find a place that suits you and you're happy there, you cling on to it for dear life, because, as you've mentioned, there's so many bad ones out there. And you can find them on every street corner, McDojos or whatever. And it's just and it undermines the good martial artists and the credible guys who have been in it for a long time.
I think, and when there's sort of the one that I'm talking about that I unfortunately had sort of dealings with, you weren't allowed to compete or anything like that, and it's so I would say that's a bit of a red flag. Is like, oh, do you not want me to compete because I'm not going to do so well, or are you afraid that it's going to expose your club in front of a forum of serious people?
That's exactly the reason. The reason. It's the same old tricks, It's been happening since the 90s. I would say that's when the era of the McDojo, they sprung up and people really exploited the martial arts for their own gain. And it's unfortunate, but it's a fact of life, So.
I think it's just like so hard to regulate. You can't turn around and go, no, you can't open that up and sort of, teach people this. Well, there's nothing stopping me, and that's kind of the unfortunate thing about it.
There used to be a whole forum back in the day, a website. I'm going to actually do a wee video clip on it, and it was what was it called again? It was called Bullshido.net.
Yeah.
Do you remember the Bullshido guys? And there was loads of cool, funny stuff in that forum. So that's probably been like memory hold, or it's like I don't even know if it still exists.
I don't know. I might be able to find it. Use sort of like Wayback Machine or something like that.
Oh, so yeah. We could find it on that, but I'm definitely going to do a week. It was maybe around about the 2000s. I used to go into Bullshido.net, and they would compare different martial arts and different styles, and they would have loads of videos, like different things that you mentioned, McDojos. It was quite a cool forum back then.
Yeah, I think although maybe me being a bit harsh, but I think I'd like to see almost like a page or a forum actually calling out specific places and going, right, what are you doing? What are people paying?
They had that. I can remember they did.
They
had that. They had like a system. I think it was like no stars. It was like bills or something like that.
Okay.
And you could get between say 1 and 5, from what I can remember. And if you had like 5 Bushidos, you were basically a McDojo. That's how it worked. But unfortunately, like a lot of good clubs and a lot of good martial artists get caught up in that as well, because remember, it's always people's opinions, so they can get a personal dispute with an instructor, and before you know it, they've bad mouthed the place when it's actually a decent place. So
yeah, I suppose you've got to spend some time there to almost figure it out, but then the time that you've spent there is also potentially time and money wasted as well, where you could be finding the right place and getting ahead.
That's true. Very true.
I know the place that I went to, the guy wanted to talk to me more than let me actually train. And at that point I was like, I'm not getting my money's worth for a start, let alone, being actually doing something. So
it's no use whatsoever. But listen, man, keep me updated on your tournament progress. Are you going to post some of your wins on your Instagram page?
Yeah. The ones from last year are on there. But yes, I think the next one should be the English champs, which I think are in March, where they'll be held in Worcester.
Will you be fit for that? You mentioned
I should be, yeah. Providing I don't do anything daft in the meantime.
Yeah, and that's the other good thing about Taekwondo. Even when a part of your body's injured, say your ankle or your leg, you can work on your upper. There's always something that you can do, whether it's forwards, there's never
a reason to sort of sit still.
I don't think so. Definitely not. And you can train at home. That's the other benefit to the traditional arts.
Yeah.
If you're a boxer, apart from shadow boxing, you kind of need a room full of people.
Yeah. I mean, I cancelled my gym membership and sort of set something up in there. We've got a conservatory downstairs, so I kind of set up a little bit of a home gym in there. So yeah, that's just means that I don't have to get up as early to get to the gym anymore. I can just roll downstairs. So
it makes sense.
Yeah.
But listen, man, I'm kind of running a wee bit short of time here, so it was great to speak to you, and I'd like to speak again at some point. Have you back on the show?
Yeah. No, thanks for having me on. It's been really good.
It was really excellent, and these are the types of conversations that I want to have with people, because it's like a blast from the past for me, hearing about Taekwondo and Lau Gar and tournaments and things like that.
Yeah.
I could spend all day talking about these subjects.
No, it's been fantastic. I mean, I'm running short time as well. I need to go and catch the Six Nations.
Excellent. Oh yeah, and you were telling me I should know this, but it's Scotland's first game or something.
So I think Scotland's first game is happening now,
right?
And then it's England Wales at 20-5, I think. So yeah,
come on the Wales.
Oh, don't. So I have to put it with my other half. She's half Welsh and can't decide who she wants to support.
Excellent. Okay, man. Well, you have a great the rest of your day. Enjoy the Six Nations and stuff. And I'm sure we'll do this again. We'll have you back on the Martial Mindset show.
100%. Would love to. No, thanks for having me on. It's been great.
Cheers, man. Right.
Cool.
See you later.
Bye. Take it easy.